Hi there, my name is Ashley, and today I kind of wanted to go through some plants that I would recommend for beginners. And I know there's a lot of videos like this, and it's all over the internet and stuff like that, but this is my experience, and there's going to be some generic ones in my list, but I also wanted to include some more maybe advanced, but I still think that they're relatively easy care, that even if you are a beginner, you could still take care of these plants. So my criteria for like a beginner friendly plant would be if it can tolerate drying out, if it doesn't need, super high light, it could work in medium, potentially even low light, and if it's not super sensitive to the environment that it's in, if it doesn't need a humidifier or any kind of specific environmental care. So the first one on my list is going to be a snake plant, and I'll pop some pictures up. This is by far the most popular beginner houseplant. They come in a bunch of different varieties. My personal favorite is the Sansevieria Moonlight. But there's so many different varieties of snake plants. Like, they're not just, the typical ones that you would think of. They're super, super easygoing when it comes to watering. I water mine about like once a month, honestly, if that, during the winter. During the summer, obviously, it might be a little more because it's warmer out. I have mine in pretty medium to high light. Like, I have some in front of the grow lights, and they do fine in low light, but obviously they're gonna thrive if you have them in better lighting, but they will still grow even in just like regular room light. You don't need grow lights for your snake plants. My second recommendation is gonna be an aloe vera. I'll pop in a picture. I've had mine for maybe like almost 2 years now, and it's grown like crazy. And it's nice because it's one of those plants that has, a use, because you can use it in the summer for sunburns or anything like that. Just like the snake plant, honestly, I think I water it less than once a month. Like, I don't really have to pay attention to it. I just kind of water it when I remember to. Like, it's not one of the ones that I check every single time I'm checking for watering. I have it in terracotta, so that also kind of prevents overwatering, because that terracotta will wick away any extra moisture, and I think that kind of gives me some peace of mind. I have my snake plants in terracotta as well. I think my next recommendation would probably be any kind of holiday cactus. I feel like I don't see these enough on these like beginner friendly lists. Either the Easter or the Thanksgiving, and the Christmas is a little harder to find nowadays, but that too, I mean, they don't behave like a cactus, but it's kind of similar to any other plant, really. Like, once you see them kind of start to droop or like wrinkle a little bit, that's when I water mine. And I also have uh, my bigger Thanksgiving cactus. I have that in terracotta, just to make sure I'm not overwatering it. And they're great. I mean, they tell you when they want to be watered, and they flower. Mine flower at all random times of the year. I've seen stuff that has to do with the temperature, but I'm not entirely sure about that. But I think they're great, and they're super easy to propagate. You just kind of take off one of the little buds and it'll grow just from that. Another plant that I don't see enough of on these lists is an African violet. I love African violets, and kind of similar to, like the Thanksgiving cactus, it'll tell you when it needs to be watered, like it droops, and it flowers. So what more could you ask for? I have mine in relatively low light, and they're still putting out new leaves. The only thing that you want to keep in mind with African violets is they don't like water getting on their leaves, so you actually want to either bottom water them or put them in like a self-watering pot. I have mine in like a terracotta self-watering setup, I have all my African violets in those, and I think they love it, and it gives me peace of mind that I'm not going to get water on their leaves, because anything with those like fuzzy leaves, they don't really like getting water on their leaves, at least in my experience. Kind of staying on that train of thought of, like drooping leaves, letting you know when it needs to be watered. I find that a lot of pothos or those trailing philodendron, they really do that as well. It helps a lot in knowing when you need to water them. Any plant that'll tell you when it needs to be watered, like a peace lily or even a monstera, anything like that'll tell you when it needs to be watered. And as soon as you can see those cues and you pick up on them, I think that makes a big difference, and you can go from someone who's never been able to keep a plant alive to someone who can have multiple plants, even up to like a collection, as soon as you can pick up on those cues with watering especially. I also tend to err on the side of underwatering, because I would much rather underwater and have my plants droop than to be overwatered and have root rot, because that's a lot harder to fix than having your plant be a little bit droopy. So honestly, my advice is, if you're not sure if your plant needs to be watered, I would wait a little bit and then see if it's giving you those cues. I think to wrap up my list, I would recommend Hoya. Obviously not all Hoya are the same. I personally, as a beginner, would go for the thicker leaved Hoyas rather than the thinner leaved Hoyas, because the thicker leaves can go much longer without being watered. The only thing I will say about Hoya is a majority of them are slow growing. You're going to have to be patient before you see any kind of growth. But again, once you can pick up on those watering cues, then they will be much happier. I have my Hoyas in a variety of light settings. I have some under grow lights, I have some in relatively lower light, I have some in kind of ambient room light, and they're all putting out new growth. They all seem very happy. Obviously they're growing at different rates, but I feel like once they start to mature and get bigger, then they will progress really fast. And again, I don't think I see Hoya on enough beginner friendly plant lists, so I wanted to include some that aren't the typical ones that you see. Obviously, like snake plants, ZZ plants, hanging philodendron, peace lilies, all of those are obviously good beginner plants, but I kind of wanted to include some different ones, just so it's not the same stuff that you've been hearing every single time. But anyways, I'm Maggie. Of course, as with many things, do your research on whatever plant that you're getting. Don't just take my little tidbits of advice, do some research on a plant before you get it to make sure that you can provide it with the light that it needs, if it needs a crawling pot, or if it trails, or if it climbs, you want to look up this stuff before you get a plant. I know I personally have brought home plants that I haven't done my research on, and then it's turned out to be something that I didn't expect. Like, I thought something was a climbing philodendron and it turned out to be a crawler, So I think my advice would be to just do research before you bring a plant home. I know it's tempting when you see something really, really pretty, but if you want it to thrive in your home and in your collection, then you want to make sure that it's something that you can actually take care of and keep up with. But anyways, thank you for sharing, and I would love to know what your first plant was back when you were a beginner. My very first plant when I started my plant collection was a rattlesnake calathea. So that was bold of me, and again, that was me not doing my research. So do your research, and good luck.